Hey y'all, welcome and or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today's video is another Crime and Wine episode, so if you're ready, let's go. Alright y'all, so it's 2008 and Faith Harris is a 32-year-old divorced mother of 2 children, and she has an 11-year-old boy named Chadney Allen Jr. and a 9-year-old girl named Kara Allen. And like I said, it's 2008 and she is a pastor's daughter, and she's at her dad's church when a new member comes in who either she hasn't seen in a long time or he's just new altogether, and his name is Gregory Green. And somehow she and Gregory become acquainted with one another, and they get a little friendly and they start dating. And you know, they just date and doing their thing. And about 2 years later, on December 18th of 2010, is when they decide to marry each other. So Faith Harris now becomes Faith Green. During the course of Gregory and Faith's relationship, they would have 2 baby girls together named Coy, and she was born in 2011, and Kaylee, who was born in 2012. So now that makes 4 kids in the household. 2 are Gregory's stepchildren, and all 4 are Faith's biological children. And things in this family seem to be going well, but as y'all know, with the content of this channel, things don't stay going well for long, and so nothing's different here. So about 3 years after they get married in February of 2013, problems arise, and Faith ends up actually filing for a personal protection order against Gregory. In the PPO document, it pretty much just states that Gregory is trying to get her to leave the house. He's been belligerent. He's kicking things. He's threatening violence. He keeps jumping at her as if to attack her. He's kicking couches. He actually kicked the couch multiple times while their baby was laying on it. And she's just trying to pretty much just file for a personal protection order just to keep herself and her children safe. But unfortunately, this order gets denied because in the report there have been no mentions of actual physical violence. There have been no mention of physical abuse, and there hadn't been any calls to police, or dispatchers hadn't been out to their house within the last 3 months. So this particular judge just didn't see it fit for her to actually get the personal protection order. So being that the PPO was denied, Faith really didn't have a choice but to continue on without it, and that's exactly what she did. But she did take another step to, I guess, rid herself of Gregory in 2013, because in October she actually ended up filing for divorce. But unfortunately, again, this case was dropped because after she filed for the divorce, there was no further action put behind the filing. So she filed and then just, I guess, never followed up. So the whole divorce proceeding, like the whole filing for the divorce, it just got dropped. And honestly, I don't even think Gregory knew that Faith filed for a divorce at this point, because like I said, it got dropped. So I'm 100% sure that he did not get served with any papers. Like, he had no idea he had got filed for divorce on. So they just keep living their lives, and apparently things are going well again. And if they're not, there's absolutely no indication of it based off of the reports from Faith's friends. You know, things were pretty much okay again until 2016. And this is when Faith started telling her friends, like, look, my marriage is in trouble. I don't think that we can go on like this. I'm not happy here. It's just not gonna work out. But again, no reports of physical abuse have been stated. It was just, I'm not happy. I don't want to be here. I think I'm gonna leave Gregory. Now, that's not to say that there was not physical abuse happening. That's literally just to say that she never told anybody about it, because Faith's friends said that she was a private individual. So even if there was physical abuse, she didn't say so, either out of just being a private person or out of sheer embarrassing. What is embarrassing? Out of pure embarrassment. So being that Faith was just so unhappy in her relationship, and she's starting to tell people that she's unhappy, she actually goes ahead and files for divorce again. And this is on August 11th of 2016. Now, unlike the previous filing for divorce 3 years earlier, Faith actually followed through with this one. So she submitted all her documents, she signed all her paperwork, and everything went forward in the filing for the divorce. So just about a month later, on September 20th, this is when Gregory was pretty much just served with his divorce papers. But you see, Gregory, he wasn't one to go through a divorce quietly. He wasn't going to take that and then just be like, okay, well, I'll leave, you don't want me, we're going to get divorced and that's it. He wasn't going to do that. That wasn't Gregory. Not Gregory by a long shot. Gregory is a fucking psychopath. Gregory is just a motherfucking lunatic. But anyways, Just a day later, in the early hours of the morning on September 21st, 2016, Faith is led into her basement at gunpoint, and she is tied up with duct tape and zip ties, and if I'm not mistaken, her mouth is also duct taped. She is shot in the foot, and she is also slashed in the face with a box cutter, and of course, we all know at this point that the person doing this is none other than Gregory Green, her husband, her estranged husband. And as if this is not bad enough, as if not shooting her in the foot and slicing her in the face isn't bad enough, this man goes back upstairs and grabs her older two children, that's Chadney and Kara, and he leads them downstairs to the basement at gunpoint as well. And once they're down there in the basement, he instructs Chadney to tie up his younger sister, and then he in turn ties up Chadney. Faith is not dead at this point. She is still alive, of course, in serious pain, but she is alive nonetheless, and this man proceeds to make her watch the execution of her two children. He shoots Chadney in the ear, and then he shoots him in the head, and he also shoots Kara twice as well, both in the head, but he actually stands over her and shoots her in the top of the head, and their mother has to sit there and watch all of that. Just saying that out loud just did something to me. So I can only imagine her having to watch it take place. But let's not forget that there are two other babies in this story, and unfortunately they do not make it out of this situation alive either, because Gregory took his own two children out of their bed while they were sleeping. He put them inside the family car that was outside, and he turned on the ignition. Now, this might not sound like a big deal. However, he had already rigged the car to have a pipe going from the exhaust to into the car. So he essentially poisoned his own two children by carbon monoxide, and once he was sure that they were no longer here, he took them out of the car and he put them back in their beds. And once all of this was done, Gregory went outside and he called the police, and he waited for the police. And once the police got there, of course, he told them, look, I just killed my whole family, arrest me now. And so basically that's what they did. And when they got inside of the house, they found the carnage that was left. And it was so bad that some of the police officers who were at the scene, or maybe even all of them, they had to get counseling. They were in counseling because it was just that gruesome. Now, luckily, Faith was not dead, and she did go to the hospital, and she actually did in fact survive her wounds. But just now, being the only sole survivor of a massacre that killed all four of your children is unbelievably just terrible. It's actually an unbearable thought to have. Like, So Gregory ended up pleading guilty in September of the following year, 2017. He was sentenced to 45 to 100 years in prison, and essentially he'll be eligible for parole after 45 years. However, he'll be 97 when that happens, so he'll either be dead or too decrepit to like even do anything when he gets out. However, nobody think he's gonna get out anyways, because even if he do go up for parole, ain't nobody letting that man out of jail. Because shortly after all of this happened to Faith and her family, everybody's hurt and just pain and just sorrow turned to anger and rage. Because y'all see, this was not Gregory's first rodeo, okay? So let's talk about Gregory for a little bit. He was born in Dearborn, Michigan on December 10, 1966 to his parents, Woodrow and Tommy Green. And in July of 1989, when Gregory was 23 years old, he met and married his first wife, Tanya Green. And she was the mother of two children. She had a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, both girls. So again, just like things had been with Faith, things started going bad with Tanya just about 2 years into their relationship. And in 1991, Tanya was telling her friends how Gregory had changed, how she didn't really know what was wrong with him. She thought he might have been on drugs. She really just didn't know what was going on with him, because his personality just like, it just flipped the switch. He just completely did a 180, and now he was acting completely different than the man she married. And even though at this point Tanya was 6 months pregnant with Gregory's baby, she was like, I really don't care. I don't want to be in this relationship. I'm going to leave him. I'm going to divorce him. And that just is what it is. And she had all intentions of doing that. Her friend said that one of the last times Tanya had spoken to her, she was going to go to church and then she was going to go home and start packing up her stuff, and she was going to get the hell out of Dodge and leave Gregory. Unfortunately, she wouldn't even get the chance to do this, because on July 14th, 1991, Gregory would end up stabbing Tanya 10 times in the chest and abdomen region, in the cheek, just pretty much everywhere. And I told you guys that Tanya had 2 other children, but luckily this time Gregory did not get a hold of them, and the 8-year-old by this time was hiding in the closet, and her now 5-year-old, she had cerebral palsy, so she really couldn't hide or run or go anywhere, but she was not harmed in the process. But anyways, so like I said, just as before, Gregory went outside, he called the police. So once police got there, he told them, yeah, I stabbed her, she's in the kitchen, I left the knife on top of the refrigerator. And unfortunately, Tanya and her baby both lost their lives that day. With this case though, he attempted the insanity plea, but it was found that he was competent enough to stand trial. And so he ended up pleading guilty in March of 1992, and he was sentenced to 15 to 25 years in prison. Now, during his prison stay this first time, he was a model citizen, I guess. He didn't get into no trouble. He kept his area clean. He pretty much just kept to himself, said, I'm gonna eat my 3 meals, I'm gonna go to the yard, and I'm gonna go to sleep. Like, that's what it is. And the only time he had any disciplinary action was when he got in a fight in 2002 over the TV with his cellmate, because I don't know why y'all fighting over the TV like that, but that's what it was. They was fighting over the TV, and so he got a ticket for that. But other than that, there was nothing on his record as far as, like, you know, being inside the jail goes. And so when it was time for him to go up for parole, he did. In 2004, he went up for parole, and they actually denied him. They denied him twice in 2004. And with those 2 denials, he took it, he sat on it, and then he tried again in 2006. So he went up against the parole board in 2006, and once again they denied him. Actually, twice again they denied him in 2006. And the basis of most of these denials was pretty much that he didn't show no remorse. He didn't show enough remorse for them, I guess. And he pretty much at some point started blaming Tanya for what happened to her. Like, oh, she made me do this. This is why I did it. It was because of her. It was her fault. She was going to leave me, or whatever the case was. And they were like, yeah, he has no remorse. You sit your ass back down in jail and you continue to think about what you did, because clearly you no, just no. Okay? Sit your ass down. But you see, the whole time he was in jail, and while he was fighting for his, you know, freedom, during, like, going up against the parole board, there were other people also advocating for his freedom, like his parents, guards at the facility, pastors, like pretty much a lot. There was a lot of people who was fighting for his freedom. And again, like I said, it was a pastor, Pastor Fred Harris. If y'all remember that last name, Harris, that was Faith's last name prior to her becoming Faith Green. And yes, this is her father. I told y'all her father was a pastor. Her father rallied for this man to get out of jail. And I'm going to read y'all some of the stuff that he wrote. So Pastor Greg Harris said in one of his letters in 2005 was, Gregory and I were friends before his mishap and he was incarcerated. First of all, sir, let's not call the murder of a pregnant woman a mishap. That's not a mishap, okay? However, let's continue. I feel he has paid for his unfortunate lack of self-control and the damage he has caused as much as possible, and is sorry. This will not restore the lives that were taken. He will carry that with him for the rest of his life. Pastor Harris continued on in a letter in 2006, so the next year he wrote, I've noticed a great deal of growth, and his understanding has matured quite a bit, as well as his processing skills. If he was to be released, he would be welcomed as a part of our church community, and whatever we could do to help him adjust, we would. And this was in 2005 and 2006. So with Pastor Harris's help, and with all of the other people rallying for him as well, when Gregory went up for parole in 2008, he was essentially released. And this is when he started going to Pastor Harris's church and when he met Faith. And so, like I said, this is the reason why people's hurt turned to rage and anger, because they felt like this should have never happened. This man should have never been let out on parole. And if he would have never been let out on parole, he would have never had the opportunity to do what he did to Faith and her family. Although the other 2 lives would have been still taken, they still could have potentially prevented another 4 lives being taken and another 5th one being destroyed for the rest of her life. However, he still would have gotten out of prison anyway based off of, you know, his good behavior, and basically he would have maxed out his sentence in 2012. So he would have been released either way. If he was released in 2012 just based off of the sheer fact that he maxed out his sentence and he was just released because it was his time to be released, then who's to say that this wouldn't happen to somebody else? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that it should have happened to Faith, and I'm not saying that that was right. What I'm saying is, like, he would have been let out into society no matter what. So there's a good potential that it could have happened again anyway, because based off of, you know, pattern, when people try to leave Gregory, he not going. There's only one way out for him, and it's not for him to be the one, you know, unfortunately in a casket. So because Faith's dad, Fred Harris, was one of the people who rallied for Gregory to get out, people actually question if Faith knew about his past, because clearly her dad did. And people also question her dad, like, okay, you knew this man's past. Even if she didn't really know the full extent of everything that happened, you knew this man's past. So why would you allow your daughter to date and marry him? And at the end of the day, she was grown. She was a 32-year-old woman when Gregory got out of jail. She could have just fallen for him just based off of her own, you know, just because she had fallen for him. And, you know, you really, like, what you gonna tell a 32-year-old? You can't date him. Like, no, you can't do that. I mean, you could, but are they gonna listen? Probably not. So, like, there's a lot of, like, not controversy, but there's a lot of mixed feelings behind this case. There's a lot of mixed emotions. Some people feel like, you know, she's a terrible mother because she let this man into her home. Some people feel like it doesn't matter that she let him into her home. She could have never known that he would have done this, because at the end of the day, people get locked up and released all the time, and they don't necessarily always, you know, repeat their crimes. So, you know, can you really hold somebody's past against them? It's like, okay, yeah, I did that in the past, but I'm a changed person, because people do change. I don't care what nobody say, people change. But it's just a lot. It's a lot of mixed feelings behind this one, and I don't know how I feel, honestly, because there's one part of me who feels like, girl, you knew his past and you tried to give him a second chance. She decided to give somebody a second chance who didn't deserve a second chance. And then there's people who feel like her daddy just wrong as hell, and he's never commented, you know, by the way, he's never said anything to the media about, you know, rallying for Gregory's release. He ain't never said nothing about it. But, you know, and then there's other people who feel like, y'all leave this woman alone. She has suffered enough. She is suffering every single day. Just let her go. Let it go. But yeah, you guys, that is the end of this case. That is all I have for this video. Thank you so very much for watching. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I have a playlist of crime and wine right here. You can subscribe over here. And yeah, I will see you all in the next one.